Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the School of Light and another image breakdown. I'm genuinely really thrilled today to have this gentleman on the screen with me, whose name is Clayton Fleming. And Clayton is in the wonderful metropolis of Chicago. G'day, mate. How are you today?
Hey, Dennis. How are you?
Yeah, now we're on opposite. We've been trying to manage this because it's the morning for me, night for you, but here we are together. Now, Clayton is the idea of the image breakdowns is I'm plucking people off the internet or people from the light painting community that I think you will look at their work and look at the particular image. I'll pop up on the screen now, the image that we're going to be breaking down, and people that I reckon you'll spend 20 minutes watching, and it will inspire you to get out and make better images, get outside for starters. But as you can see from this image, there's something quite special about this photograph, mate. And I remember the first time it popped up in my feed. And full disclosure, Clayton Fleming is a paid up member of the Ball of Light Club, as you're going to see through this. And mate, I would call you a spin god. You are so incredibly precise and wonderful with your orb spinning. Now we have been. This is the first time we've met, like a lot of these things, but I have followed your work for many years, and it is always such a joy when your work comes across my social media feeds because, and I'll explain quickly before we get into it, the things I love about what you do. And there's some good points in here for everyone. Is you take your orbs, I think you treat your orb spinning like a practice. The only way to get as good as you are at spinning orbs is to practice. You spin a lot of orbs, but you also are super creative about where you put them and the locations that you go to. And I reckon that I used to say in my early days of, and sorry, everyone, we're going to talk a lot about orbs in the next 20 minutes, but I reckon that what makes an image with an orb in it really good is that if you took the orb out of it, would it still be a compelling photograph? Now, sometimes putting the orb in there makes it amazing, but you know, we're going to be over the next 20 minutes, we're going to scroll through a lot of images. And I think there's going to be some things that become really obvious. And the first thing I would love to hear from you, mate, is you go outside and into abandoned buildings a lot. Talk to me. I'm keen to hear from you a bit about that process. Why you love those particular places? Do you go with other people? What's cool about that? Sir, the microphone is yours.
Indeed. I love going to abandoned buildings, warehouses, just because it just gives you a very vast open space to create. Yeah. Love going. I definitely have to say that, you know, when you're going into abandoned spaces, it is wise to have friends with you. Just because if something could happen, you always want to have somebody there with you that can, guide you or be with you for that. But yeah, no, just the graffiti is sometimes very amazing in there, and just lots of compositions.
I think that composition is one, isn't it? Like I look at a lot of your photographs, and one of the things that I'm just thinking about now is it's easy to create symmetry, and it's easy to create leading lines and that sort of thing in those places. But the graffiti is mad. How many people do you normally go out with?
It varies. We try to get as many people in our group, but sometimes it can be upwards of 7 to 10 people, but
wow.
usually 4 or 5 on a given night. And that helps too, because then you have your own ideas, yeah, but then the collective come in and they'll tell you, Clayton, spin an orb here, spin an orb there. And so ideas are always flowing.
Yeah. There's we're gonna break down this crazy photograph you created, but I always love, there's some things I really love about water, the reflections. So often you're working with reflections that just absolutely floor me. There's something magical about that, reflections are just so beautiful because it literally adds another dimension, right?
It does, yeah. We try, sometimes we go in there and it's bone dry. Other times we go there after a fresh rain and we are very delighted.
And you go outside plenty as well. Do you enjoy the finding, because everything opens up? Obviously it literally opens up, but it opens up the possibilities when you go outside, eh?
Indeed. To try to find open spaces, just trying to find different compositions. So you can do a lot of abandoned buildings, but sometimes they're not always going to be there. So
it's adventure, eh?
Definitely.
Adventure with friends is so
Definitely.
often what it's about. Okay, I'm going to bring up this photograph. It's always blowing me away. There was a time in the early days of orb spinning where there was this ridiculous competition to see who could spin the most orbs. It got to the point where a crew in America went out and spun 1,000, and then some dude in India used a machine to make, like, silly, but they weren't even orbs. But here's what I want people to understand is that, firstly, is this a single exposure?
Correct. Yeah, it was 36 minutes and 35 orbs. So yeah, it was a fun one.
So tell me, tell us before we start thinking about the process, like, where did the idea come from?
So a group of us, about 5 of us, traveled to Detroit and to check out their scene with regards to the abandoned buildings.
Yeah.
And we crossed a school and we were walking through it and we got to a certain part and we smelled the chlorine. So we knew there was a pool.
Yeah.
So we walked through a couple of rooms, found the pool, and yeah, we were in heaven.
So not a lot of planning. It was just, you just stumbled across it, literally.
Spur of the moment, yeah.
Wow. Now so it's a single exposure, but the other thing people need to realize is that these are hand spun orbs, right? You're not standing with some machine. You are literally
correct. Yes.
Spun 36 orbs.
36 orbs, yeah, with the ball of light tool.
Now I've spun a 1 or 2 orbs. I remember once down here in Port Adelaide trying to do a bunch of orbs. That can be tiring and a bit rough on the arm. Now what I'd love to know, break it down. What's the process? So how many people were there? How did you line them up? Yeah.
We had, at the time, I think there were 4 people there, and we had 1 straggler that was coming a little bit later. We walked in here, we assessed what the area was, and then we started looking around the room, and for the most part, it was pitch black. We're shining our flashlights, we're looking around the room, and surrounding the whole perimeter of this pool area, there were those little tea lights. Probably a couple hundred. And I don't know if somebody had set up a shop prior to us or just lit them all just for whatever they were doing. But when we saw those, we're like, those are going to be great markers.
Of course.
So at that point, I had a toolbox filled with different light tools and whatnot. But of course, in there, I had a tape measure, which I highly suggest having, and started mapping it out. And I would highly suggest, with these shots, it does take a bit of time to set them up. I think we were in there at least an hour.
Yep.
Getting everything right, getting everybody's camera into a certain spot, getting everybody ready.
And then it was all on.
At that point, when we started the shot, I had a friend, James, Roach Bites. He would walk behind me or off to the side and would have all different ball of headlights. Ball of light heads.
Yep.
And he was just handing them to me as I was going through the shot.
Now there's, I haven't counted. I reckon there's probably at least 6 colors there.
I think we had at least 8 or 9 at the time. Yeah.
It's crazy. It's so good. the angle is amazing, the spin is amazing, and one of the things also that is a little complicated is that these heads all have a slightly different brightness, right? So you wouldn't have just left it on the same power. You would have tweaked a couple of them.
A couple of them, especially the blue.
Yeah,
I would want to tone that down a little bit.
yeah,
But
the
at
blue is
that
very bright.
point, you start losing your mind because you're just, and your arm, like you said, does start to get tired. So it was just a full on go.
And you get dizzy.
Oh, definitely. And at one point, I'd say in either the third or fourth row, I did lose direction. So I had to, I stopped everything and I asked my buddy Pat, I'm like, where am I? Which direction was I going? And
Yeah.
luckily we were able to figure that out.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, duh. I was, of course, because you can't see where you've done it, right? No.
Correct.
No.
Yeah, when you're spinning around so many times, you lose perspective of where you're at.
You do, yeah. It's a and good. You know, I'm a safety nut. Good thing to think about when you're standing on a relatively flat pool floor. It's okay, but if you stand, you know, so many of your images are. I mean, I'm looking at one here on your Instagram feed that looks like it's in a canyon somewhere, right? Sure. You know, you got to be careful when you're outside standing on edges of things, because if you trip and fall and break an ankle or something like that. So yeah, if you're scared of heights. So I want to know how much whooping and hollering was going on by your friends. Go Clayton.
Oddly enough, these guys will either talk amongst themselves quietly or just let me do my thing, because I'm shouting out commands or stuff like that.
Yes.
Usually they're relatively quiet. So, but it's when the resulting image pops up, then there's all the hooting and hollering. So.
Yeah. Oh my God. And did you do it in one hit? Surely.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
We knew that.
When I got halfway through that, I'm like, I know I'm only going to have one go at this. So it is what it is.
Oh man. You know something, Clayton, you know, we would have just looked at a lot, but I want to take the opportunity just to talk to you a little bit about your work outside of this image, so that I've got an excuse to just scroll through your Instagram feed on the screen. Give me someone who's just getting into spinning orbs, whether they're using a glow stick on the end of a bit of string or some Christmas lights, or the tool doesn't really matter, right? Although, you know, obviously having something that's specifically designed for it is beneficial, but let's put the tool aside. Someone watching this who wants to have a crack at really getting serious about spinning their orbs, talk to us a little bit about your thought process. What advice can you give someone who's just starting out, or someone who's been spinning for a while and is maybe a little frustrated? What feedback can you give us about creating a good, solid light painting image with an orb in it?
I think it comes down to being comfortable with how you spin. Yeah. When I talk to a lot of people, everybody has their own way of doing it, and no way is wrong.
No.
Some people walk backwards, some people walk forwards, some people have their arms straight out. So I have mine tucked right against my hip so it doesn't move. Yeah. And it's just practice, you know. I was lucky enough when I got your tool in my hand. It worked out, and I was able to start spinning orbs pretty darn quickly. Yeah. I think it was Trevor, who you had another interview with. He had a rotator tool.
He did.
I started out using that as well. Yeah. And
there's something freeing. When I look at your images, especially in the abandoned stuff, because for me, when I think of I know when a Clayton Fleming image comes onto my feed, I don't even need to know. Look, it's you. I know it's you. It's your composition, the quality of the orb. But one of the things, mate, that I reckon people, and this is with all light painting, is exactly as you say, it's a practice. Not only practicing your spin, but you know, when you go out and you're setting up a shop, be really experimental with your camera settings, because your images are always so incredibly well controlled. The way your orbs are never overblown, or I'm sure there are many, right? Like I go out and I come back with half of them are in the bin, half of them are keepers. But it always feels to me like, oh my God, I need to focus on you, because I'm looking at your Instagram feed. It's like, I keep stopping. But yeah, your orbs are always well exposed. You're always thinking about composition. You're always, you know, creating these images that are deep. They have depth. Cool. This is one I've been looking for. There is an image on your feed that is the one, you'll know the one. It's got the I think a styrofoam head with the green light behind it and the bird on the wall and the spin. And I remember when this image, when you created this image, I remember it being absolutely floored by it. And what I loved about it, and this is something that I want to express to people, is yes, that orb, you could draw a circle around it, but it's like all hand spun orbs. It's like a fingerprint. Every single one is different. And there's this lovely sort of cross hatching in the orb, but you've created this beautiful balance of color between the bird, the color of the head you've chosen, and the green. It's like you go out and design, you spend ages looking at a scene and creating it. Do you, or do they just come naturally?
It depends. When we go into certain buildings, we end up going back multiple times.
Yeah.
You know, first time is maybe, let's say, a walkthrough.
Yeah.
Second time, you do a couple compositions, but you just try to target every area and see what's going to work and what's not going to work.
Yeah.
But I liked creating that image. I had that image in my mind for probably about a month.
Wicked. That is very cool.
Obviously, we found that head in another building, and I carried it around for a couple of weeks trying to find a place to put it. So
yeah, we nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. Well, mate, look, what we're going to do, we would have just spent a bit of time scrolling through some images while we're chatting there. I would really like people who are watching this to, you know, I think there's some real benefit in going and spending some time looking at your social media feed, not just because it's really pleasing, especially if you're into orbs, but knowing that you're out with a group of people. But anyone who spends any time looking at your stuff like I have, your work inspires me to go out and be more precise, be more you know, thoughtful about what I'm creating, more precise, and go find more abandoned buildings. I always think about, imagine going somewhere like Detroit, man, like into one of those massive old car factories with big presses, and that would be
they are pretty cool.
Oh,
they're really neat.
Amazing. Well, mate, look, what a buzz to catch up. Thank you for being such an awesome orb spinning guru. Thank you for nurturing a community over there. It's really nice.
Thanks for having me on, Dennis. This has been amazing.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure. And thank you everyone for dropping by. It's a wild week for me this week. I'm heading away into the Australian outback this week, and it's been such a buzz to be able to sneak this one in before I go away. Thanks everyone for dropping by the School of Light. Thank you, Clayton, for coming and hanging out with us late in the evening, and for just making beautiful images. Thanks everyone. Thanks for dropping by. Thank you, mate.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks. I'll see you soon, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this visit to the School of Light. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'll be adding videos all the time. Head over to the Light Painting Tool Shop at the website. There's a huge array of tools I've made there for you to take on your light painting journey. Peace.